All right, Thrive Nation, on today's show, we are interviewing the co-founder of the Container Store, Kip Tindell. Yes, it's the co-founder of the Container Store. Now, the Container Store co-founder, Kip Tindell, joins us today to talk about the importance of managing your time by being organized, how he gained his first 10 customers using top-down influencer marketing, and why he believes that conscious capitalism allows everyone to thrive. You will love today's show, but make sure that you grab a pen and a pad before you enter into the audio dojo of mojo so that you can take those copious notes and apply what you are learning on today's show. And I promise you this, on today's show, you will laugh at least once, and probably at my expense. Now, without any further ado, my interview with the man, the myth, the legend, Kip Tindell. Now, Kip, I've been doing my research in preparation for today's interview, and so I know all of our listeners are going to Google search your name, Kip, K-I-P, Tindell, Tindell. And I can objectively say that you, my friend, are a beautiful man. And if this whole Container Store thing doesn't work out, I think you have a promising career as a male model, as kind of a fallback position. You can be a male model. I just want you to just marinate on that. Just know you have a good fallback position should the Container Store thing not work out.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with people chasing me around for that. So, thank you.
Wow.
Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Thrive Time Show.
Now, 3, 2, 1, here we go!
Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here. Started from the bottom, now we here.
Yes, and yes! Thrive Nation, on today's show, we are interviewing a legend, a guy who is such a great guest that I cannot contain my excitement for the co-founder of the Container Store, Kip Tindell. Welcome on to the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Well, thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Kip, your company Container Store is doing well, so you're kind of a big deal. So I'll try not to screw up this interview. So here we go. You've had a lot of success. But you in 1978, rumor has it, this was when I was negative 2 years old. I was not yet. I was just a thought in my dad's mind. 1978, 2 years before I was born. You started, I believe, the Container Store. How did you start the Container Store?
Well, we just spent 2 years falling in love with products that saved you time and saved you space. We had no idea that people would be as time-starved as they are today. Back then, but it did. Businesses, material parts handling were worried about saving space and saving time, but nobody did that for a consumer. There were basically no products that did that for you. So we thought the world would be a better place if everybody was a little bit more organized, and that not just does that save space and help you find things and make life a little bit more simple, but time is our greatest resource, and so nothing saves you time by being reasonably well organized. Everything goes a little bit better in the world if you are somewhat organized. Imagine getting 3 kids ready for school in the morning, and they're unorganized, and you're unorganized, and you're late, and people are crying. And then, boy, if you're organized, everybody's happy. There's a love note from mom in the lunch sacks. We're just advocates of being reasonably well organized. Makes life easier and better.
Now, you obviously had the big success. You started the company. How did you grow up? How were you raised? Or just tell us about what life was like for you starting from the bottom.
Well, I've lived in Dallas most of my life, except I spent as long as I could in Austin, Texas, going to the University of Texas, which is where I met John Mackey, an old college roommate, the co-founder of Whole Foods. And he's in this film that we're doing as well, and has been a close colleague of mine with Conscious Capitalism. But I grew up in Lake Charles, Louisiana, moved to Dallas and towards the end of elementary school, had a wonderful childhood, great parents. Everything was good. The oddest thing is that when my parents would go out at night, they would go out with friends to a movie or something like that. I would actually like organized the pantry or something while they were gone to surprise them. When they came home, I said, "Take a look at that pantry."
Oh,
And my mother loved it, but I now think my dad may have worried about me a little bit.
no, that's awesome. That is. I'm gonna give you a one mega point. And mega points, by the way, have no redeemable value on the planet Earth.
Oh,
but in
okay.
the afterlife, you can do a lot of things with them. I've heard. It's just pure speculation at this point. But 1 mega point for you for being the organized guy. How did you get the capital needed to start the Container Store? Did you have a paper route? Did you get a bank loan? What did you do?
Well, we started with $35,000, and $35,000 was not a lot of money in 1978 either, and certainly an inadequate amount to open a retail store like the Container Store. I borrowed $5,000 with my dad's co-signature, and Garrett Boone, the co-founder, put in $10,000 of his own money. Got his mom to put in $10,000, and there was another guy, an architect, John Mullen, and that put in $10,000. So a whopping $35,000. And the banker that loaned me the $5,000 was so proud of himself 20 years later. And I said, "Good God, you can't imagine the trouble you've caused me by not making it 10 rather than 5. 5 was all I could do. He wouldn't do 10.
Wow. So I mean, that's a pretty big sum of money for some people, and for some that's not a lot of money. So everyone's kind of comes at this from their own perspective. And again, if you just do the math on this, if we go to the inflation calculator, everyone can go to type in inflation calculator and you can see it. But in 1978, $35,000 comes out to $143,580 today, with adjusted for inflation. Were you nervous? Were you nervous with the money? With that kind of risk? Were you worried?
Nah, we fell in love with these simple, functional products that were, that saved you time and space. And we kind of we had a 1,600 square foot store and a little shopping center that had been overlooked in a great demographic neighborhood of Dallas. And we opened up the first day, and it was mostly families and friends that bought stuff the first day. But by a week or two later, we were worried about too many people in the store, and we thought about handing out numbers to get in, and we knew that we really had something. I think people just thought it was things like a wire basket that was meant to collect eggs in, chicken eggs and the yard eggs, and we thought that was great for gardening equipment, and a leaf burner, a thing that was designed to burn leaves in back when people could still do that. That was a toy barrel in a swimming pool to keep soccer balls and things like that from basketballs, things from all over the yard. So it was all stuff that had never been sold in a retail store before. And people went kind of crazy over it. They loved it just like we loved it. And we didn't worry too much about failure. We worried about the first day or two, but after about 2 weeks, it looked pretty good. It was very joyful after spending 2 years without pay, kind of developing those products to see people go nuts over them.
How did you market your products to get in front of the people who went nuts for the products? I mean, what were your moves? How did you get customers? Did you put up signs? Did you burn leaves and do smoke signals to attract people? What was the move?
Yeah, we sent a crude little direct mail piece that we created ourselves without much skill to the Dallas 500 largest contributors to the arts. We thought that they could maybe, I don't know, we thought that was a good list. And also a private school in Dallas called Hockaday, which is a premier, fabulous girls' school, private school of those. So we sent it to those people. It was an affluent, high demographic list, but it was also right next to where the store was located. And literally across the street. And those people came in, and those people are notable people, in Dallas, influential people. They went crazy, and they told all their friends. They told their friends. So it was really a word of mouth. I kind of learned when somebody that you respect tells you to go see a movie, you're very likely to go see it. But when somebody you don't think very much of, so we picked some of the most influential people we could in Dallas, and then had them fall in love with the place, and then they kind of took it from there.
I'm going to ask you 3 questions that you are not prepared for. They're going to be tough questions. And if you don't like it, you hang up, and then I'll pick up that maybe that's not a question you want to answer. There are 3 people, when you think of Dallas, you have to think of Nolan Ryan. You have to think of Chuck Norris. You cannot think of Dallas without Chuck Norris and Nolan Ryan, and you have to think of Jerry Jones. Now, even if you don't want to, the listeners have to think about these people. Have those people come into the Container Store, to your knowledge, and have they ever purchased something from you?
Yes, I think they all have. And Nolan Ryan, I got such a kick out of him when that young player charged the mound, and Nolan Ryan kind of got him in a headlock. That became the most popular photograph in Dallas. People like Nolan Ryan for beating up that guy more. It tells you a lot about Texas and Dallas. They liked him more for that than they did all the no-hitters he threw.
Absolutely.
But, Dallas is not so big that just about everybody hasn't come into the store at one time or another. Ross Perot was always funny because he would come in and spend forever finding products to outfit his sailboat. He's a big sailor, and sailors are very careful about their storage and space. Their space is at a premium. And he was so funny. He would take a bunch of things and try them out on the boat, and then he would dutifully bring back the things that didn't fit, to get a refund. I was like, okay. He was very frugal.
Wow. Okay. So you get this company. You're doing mass mailers. How much money did you drop on that first mass mailer? Do you remember it all?
Oh, let's see. It was probably no more than 1,000 people. Couldn't have been more than 50 cents, to produce it and mail it and everything. So maybe that whopping amount. It worked out beautifully.
And that's how you marketed the Container Store. That's how you did it. That right there blows my mind. And then that, sir, gets you 1 more mega point. You have 2 mega points. Very few guests ever get 3 mega points. I can say the founder of Netflix, the co-founder of Netflix, he wanted mega points. He knew about mega points, and he was wanting to earn them, and I think he ended up with 4 mega points. I'd have to go back and check the tape.
Oh,
Damon,
gosh. We're going to strive for 4 then.
You mentioned a movie. You said there's a movie. What movie are you referencing that you are going to be in?
Well, it's actually a documentary called Fishing with Dynamite. Fishing with Dynamite, which is releasing June 30th, directed by Academy Award-winning filmmaker Paul Wagner, that explores kind of the problems affiliated with shareholder maximization. It's really about how we can possibly improve capitalism. Capitalism has been wonderful for the world. It really has. At the Container Store, what we do is we take better care of the employee than anybody else. And if we really and truly take better care of the employee than anybody else, they'll really and truly take better care of the customer than anybody else. And if those 2 people are ecstatic, there's a great chance that your shareholders got to be ecstatic too. But if you just myopically focus on the shareholder, the employee is probably not going to be happy. The customers are probably not going to be happy. So therein lies the stakeholder model. As executives, as business people, what we do is we harmonize and balance the needs of all of the stakeholders, the community, the environment, the employees, the vendor, all of those people. And that is ultimately in the end in the best interest of the shareholder. But capitalism kind of got twisted in the 60s and 70s, and it became so solely focused on only the shareholder that we kind of lost a lot of that. So we've been working for about 15 years, a lot of business people, towards trying to bring us towards a tipping point where people who just think that business is a zero-sum game and focus only on the shareholder realize that the way to take care of everybody, including the shareholder best, is this stakeholder model. So Fishing with Dynamite is, Arthur Brooks is on there, Ed Freeman, Darden professor and the father of the stakeholder model there. I mentioned John Mackey earlier and Walter Robb. Jim Sinegal is Jim Sinegal's the co-founder of Costco, and he was kind of a big hero of mine and a bit of a mentor. So a long-winded answer to that documentary, Fishing with Dynamite, but we're excited about that one.
Now, I'm not arguing with you. I just want to get into this a little bit here. Some would say, that, well, I want to pay my people super low, and I want to have a massive turnover every week, every month, whatever, and I want to run around and be as profitable as possible at the expense of my people. Some people out there buy into the employee stock ownership model where the company shares the profits with their people, corporations like Quick Trip or corporations like Southwest Airlines. And then other people are buying into your model. Let's say somebody's on the fence and they're going, okay, I got a business and it's doing $10 million a year of profits. Let's pretend that is an accurate example. Somebody listening right now has a dental practice with maybe 3 or 4 locations, and that thing is kicking out $10 million a year of profits. How does one begin to implement your method?
Well, I think it's by balancing, thinking about what you can do for your employees that means the most to them. The people that are, what can you do for your suppliers, your vendors that mean the most to them? In order to do that, you have to communicate. In order to do that, you have to learn as much as you can about one another. But when I was investing, since we way back in I think we paid ourselves $700 a month and then $1,000 a month, so we didn't have much to invest, but we tried to save a lot of that, and we would invest in Costco versus their competitors. We would invest in Whole Foods versus their competitors. We would invest in Southwest Airlines versus their competitors because they took care of all their stakeholders. They took care of their employees. The difference between the flight attendants' service and attitude on Southwest Airlines versus some of the other airlines really impressed me. I thought Southwest would do better, and they did. They did for years and years and years. They were the most profitable airline. Whole Foods did better than the other big retailers. So we sort of fell in love with not only building a business model that illustrated that happy employees and happy vendors result in happy shareholders, but we found out that investing in similar-minded companies gave you a better return than the others. So you could start with the employee and figure out what you can do for the employee that other people are not doing. I'm not an advocate of paying an employee who's not productive well. I'm just an advocate of paying great employees very, very well. And the more involved they are, the more communicative they are with the leaders of the organization and everything, the more productive they'll be. Vendors, treat vendors just like you would treat employees. I mean, life and business are not a zero-sum game. Somebody else doesn't have to lose in order for you to win. The people who are creating the most market share, the people who are actually winning in business more and more than most, or people who create synergies. So that win-win relationship between you and the employee results in higher productivity and longer tenure on their part. And that win-win-win relationship with you and the vendor is not only joyful, it allows a smaller company like a Container Store to wind up with the lowest price in the country on a product that's sold to all the mass merchants, even though we don't deserve it. Even though our volume is not as big as some of the biggest mass merchants, we get the lower price because we have a better relationship with that vendor. And we're trying to create a win-win relationship by doing things like, we pay all of our bills in 30 days like you're supposed to, rather than 90 days like everybody else does. That becomes very important to that vendor.
True.
So it makes business a hell of a lot more fun. And if all you care about is making as much money as possible, as quickly as possible, I would submit to you this is the best methodology to do that.
Well, I tell you what. So far, I agree with these counterintuitive things you're discussing. Now, you decided to sit down and write a book, I believe, called Uncontainable: How Passion, Commitment, and Conscious Capitalism Built a Business Where Everyone Thrives. Why did you do that? Because writing a book is a painful process. It's like once you sit down and have the big idea, let's write a book. Then there's the editing the book and editing it again and editing it again. And then you end up saying, I'm starting to hate my book. Right before you love it, you hate it because you've edited it for the 47th time. Why did you choose to make the poor life decision to write a book?
Well, we just really thought that, well, I mean, there were a lot of speaking requests and media requests and everything about this wacky employee first business philosophy of the Container Store that resulted in a 38 or 40 year run of just sterling results. But you see, there used to be a lot of skepticism about conscious capitalism and the stakeholder model. There's very little now. Even the Business Roundtable is coming out as an advocate of it. So I do think we're close to it becoming kind of the way to practice capitalism. And people are saying, well, Milton Friedman was a little bit off base there. We do need to take into consideration the other stakeholders a little bit more than just the shareholder. But this book goes into explaining the business philosophy of the Container Store that's based on 7 foundation principles that the company is really based upon. The 7 kind of do unto others is, kind of golden rule-ish, almost corny, very simple things that nobody ever disagrees with, and said, these are our ends. These, one of them is Andrew Carnegie was laying on his deathbed, dying, and a cub reporter came out of New York and said, Mr. Carnegie, you're probably the most successful industrialist of all time. Is there any guiding light or beacon that you attribute all your incredible business success to? And he said, yeah, I attribute all of my business success to one guiding principle, and that is fill the other guy's basket to the brim. Making money then becomes an easy proposition. It's like, what? Fill the other guy's basket to the brim, making money then becomes, it's exactly the opposite of what everybody grows up to believe about business. But, people want to do business with the people they want to do business with. Trust is important. So he's exactly right on that. And that guiding principle helps a buyer in a retail company like the Container Store figure out exactly how to deal with that, with that vendor, that you're not just trying to take every single penny away from that vendor. You're trying to figure out how to create a lasting, durable, win-win relationship. Let's forget about a vendor-retailer relationship. Let's take any human relationship. Relationships that are mutually beneficial and rewarding and fun and joyful and loving. Those things last a long time. Relationships that are the opposite of all those things usually don't last very long. And so it's the same in business. And we're really just kind of applying the principles that I thought were most important in life to business. And what it resulted in was vendors and customers and employees loving that a business was based on those types of thoughts and supporting us more. It's as corny as it sounds. It's a little bit like the movie "It's a Wonderful Life." I mean, George was he had everybody in town supporting him because he supported them. So actually, it's Wonderful Life is probably my favorite movie. And until this Fishing with Dynamite comes along, I think they're both kind of about the same principles in life.
Okay, really? So when they finish editing this movie might become your favorite movie.
Well, it's a documentary. It's not a fiction thing.
I was going to give you a mega point. I had the trigger finger ready to give you a mega point for making the world's best movie, but I'm going to have to. No, I can't give it to you. I can't give it to you because you have a documentary. Now, okay. I have 3 final questions for you, and I want to go rapid fire here because I want to respect your time, but I want to get into this. Somebody's listening right now. They're driving their truck. They're a plumber, okay, and we've all hired a bad employee. Kip, we've all been a bad boss at one point in our life too, right? So, but Kip, have you ever hired a really bad, a cantankerous person from day one, cantankerous? And what is your advice to deal with when you have a cantankerous employee?
Well, I mean, hiring is not as difficult as hitting a baseball. In baseball, if you hit 400, you're Ted Williams or something. Nobody's hit 400 in years. I guess you're not going to always hire. You got to. Everybody has lots of bad hires, and I think there's several things that we've learned along the way. Go ahead and deal with it right away. Don't let it go on and on and on and on. It just becomes a bigger problem the longer you wait.
True.
Also, the other employees like it. They love it. They're happy to see that the management sees who's not productive and that needs to part ways. And then the most difficult part is part ways in a communicative and human way. Now, this is harder than it sounds because not everybody that's unproductive knows they're unproductive.
Right.
But it's a great thing to aim for, and I'm telling you, almost invariably you can achieve all of those things. And there's nothing worse in business than going through that. But those are the three main things that come to mind that we've learned.
Okay, now the final two questions I want to ask you is chapter 10 of your new book, Uncontainable. Chapter 10 of your new book, Uncontainable: How Passion, Commitment, and Conscious Capitalism Build a Business Where Everyone Thrives. It's about the air of excitement. Something about this chapter seems exciting. What is chapter 10 all about?
It's about approaching your work the way you approach your work. You're filled with air of excitement. We all have a commitment. We all have a responsibility to make the workplace as exciting and as wonderful and as fun as possible. We want everybody to wake up in the morning, look forward to coming to work in the morning, and then do great things with people that they love and admire, and then go home at night feeling wonderful about what they've accomplished. But part of the hard part of achieving all of that is that when you're down or you had a fight with your spouse or something, you've got a commitment to your fellow workers and your customers. Well, we can go back to the Southwest Airlines analogy. Imagine a flight attendant, how different that can make a long flight, depending on the attitude that he or she has with that. So leave your troubles and your and whatnot at the door, and help lift the spirits of your coworkers, all the stakeholders, the customers, and it makes your day and everybody else's day involved with that business better. You mentioned it earlier, but the subtitle of the book, Uncontainable, talks about if we're going to spend 40 to 80 hours a week, depending on what kind of job you have working, let's create a company where everybody associated with it thrives. It's not completely unachievable. It's an awfully lofty goal, but what could be more honorable and what could be more exciting than that? And in order to do that, you have to be realistically optimistic. You can't be pessimistic. You have to treat people with dignity and respect and humor and gentleness and love. I think that the word love and work and business don't come together very often, but I'll tell you what, a container store considers a container store their second family, and I have the spouses of people, significant others of people come to me and say, Kip, she's worked for you for 20 years, and it's not only been great for you and her in the container store, but it's made her a better mother and a better wife, and your foundation principles. And at first I used to be terribly embarrassed when they would say things like that, but then I realized that no, we spend more time working than anything else, and so we can build a better world by building one fulfilled, happy, engaged employee at a time. That's what Air of Excitement's about. But as soon as we started talking, I knew that you brought Air Excitement to your work, and so you should be a spokesperson for that.
I appreciate that, Kip. Now, Kip, I want to end the show in a win-win way, where a year from now we could get together and have a beer. I want to do it. So I have a little confession here, okay? I am not sure who I had to trick in order to book you on the show, because you're a guy with class, standards, all these things that I am not. But I have tried for many, many years to also trick, I believe, a guy that Jim Collins, to be on the show. Now, I have interviewed Sharon Lechter. We've got John Maxwell, the former head of the Harvard Business School, Clayton Christensen. We've got Seth Godin on the show. We've got Guy Kawasaki, the head of NASA, Jim Bridenstine. We just interviewed him. And we've had some really great guests on the show. And you are in that top tier. I think you just need to put a little, pressure on Jim Collins for me, and then I just need to apologize for tricking you for being on the show. You really shouldn't have been on a show like this. You're much too classy for our show.
Well,
you just kind of lean on.
I've really enjoyed it, and what wonderful guest you've had, and enjoyed every part of it.
Well, I thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And I want you to know, if you Google search your name, Kip Tindell, if this whole container store thing doesn't work out, I think you have a promising career as a male model, as kind of a fallback position. You could be a male model. I just want you to just marinate on that. Just know you have a good fallback position should the container store thing not work out.
Wow. Yeah, I don't have a problem with people chasing me around for that. So, but thank you.
All right.
And I think it's been great. We're talking about some of the topics that they're near and dear to my heart, and I hope everybody will learn more about them. And thank you for your time and opportunity. It's been great.
Hey, take care.